Hello, thank you so much for joining me today. Today we are going to talk about postponing goals. I got a DM recently that asked me to talk about how to deal mentally when you are having to postpone big goals. First thing I want to say, I did a whole video on big goals versus small goals, and there's no such thing, right? You might think of it as a big goal because it has a lot of steps. It's going to take a lot of time. It's something that you're really excited about, but there is no such thing as big goals or small goals. And the kind of mental aspect, the mindset, the struggles of postponing goals is all going to be very similar, whether it's a big goal or a small goal. And so in this video, I'm going to talk about all the reasons why you might consider postponing a goal and how to kind of reframe your mind or what you could do in that scenario to help you still stay excited. And I know one of the things that this person said when they messaged me was like, I feel unmotivated because I am postponing all of my big goals. And I also want to remind you before we jump into this that motivation does not come from the actual goal. Knowing what your goals are is not going to motivate you. It might give you a little bit of an umph. On that first day, it might seem like it's motivating you, but what really gets us motivated is action, because action leads to momentum, which leads to motivation. So if you think that because I have to postpone goals, I'm not going to be able to be motivated, that is definitely not true. And if you need to go back and get a refresher on the video I did about momentum versus motivation, highly recommend that video still, because a lot of us, especially as we get getting close to the new year, we feel like we're losing that motivation and we just need to wait for January 1st for it to get here. And that is definitely not the case. So before we get into the reasons why you might postpone a goal, any sized goal, any type of goal, I want to start off by reminding you that postponing is not failing. It might feel like it is, especially if you wrote it down and said that you were going to do this and you said that it was a goal. It might feel like postponing that goal is you failing at that goal, but that is 100% not the case. Postponing is not failing. It is changing your mind. It is prioritizing. It is doing something that you need to do for whatever reason that is, but it is not failure. A lot of times when it comes to goals, we associate a lot of things with failure. And then when we associate it with failure, we immediately think, well, I'm just done because I failed and I didn't do it. So when we have to postpone anything, any kind of goal, our brain immediately identifies that as failure, and then we give up on all of our other goals. Have you ever been there where it all like kind of lumps together? So I want to get that out of the way, because you deciding, or as we'll talk about, somebody else deciding that you need to postpone a goal is not failure in any way. So let's talk about 5 reasons why you might postpone or you might end up postponing goals. The first one is it's actually out of your control. This definitely happened to a lot of us when the entire world shut down. Like, there were a lot of goals that we had to postpone, like weddings and other things, because the world shut down and we couldn't go anywhere, travel, whatever it was for you, you likely had to postpone things because of the pandemic. However, there are other things that are out of your control that are going to cause you to postpone goals that aren't quite as globally massive as a global pandemic. That said, having to postpone a goal that is not within your control, that is somebody else making the decision or some situation making it, is likely going to be the most emotionally draining one of them all, because you are not in control of that thing. This is when I really try to embrace the mindsets that I have gained from trying to learn more about Stoicism. I have talked about the book, The Daily Stoic, a number of times. It was the foundation of me creating a morning routine, was having a daily read that was literally just 1 page. But in addition to it being the foundation of my morning routine, it also really has taught me a lot about focusing on what I can and what I cannot control. Because there are so many things in our lives that are not within our control. And some of them are like literally in nobody's control, like the weather, and some of them are in somebody else's control. But if you cannot control the postponement of a goal because it is out of your control, it does you no good to worry about it. Now, that doesn't mean that you're not gonna have feelings or emotions about it. As much as I like to believe that with a lot of personal development work, we can work on being in control of our emotions. And I heard a really good quote somewhere once that was about focusing on your second reaction, because we typically can't control our first reaction. I loved that. You're gonna have emotions about it. Feel those feelings. Sit in those feelings however long you need to feel those feelings. But then after that, it is no longer within your control. So being frustrated or letting it impact your other goals really is not It's not helpful for anybody because that postponement is is not within your control. So then what I want you to do is I want you to reframe that and say, okay, well, that goal is not in my control. Goodbye, the end. What is within my control? What are the goals that I am still working on that are within my control? Let me focus on those and schedule time for those and let those be the action that creates the momentum, that creates the motivation. Sometimes for me, it's just a matter of distracting myself from the goal that is postponed. The second scenario is you are postponing them because you're making that decision. I had a Patreon community member recently have to deal with this situation where her and her husband were planning to start a family, and she was in a job that was not a good situation for her, so she ended up postponing the decision to start trying for a family and focus on getting a new job and rebuilding up her maternity leave. That is a whole nother conversation that we need to have. But regardless, she was postponing the starting a family goal in priority of her getting a new job goal. That is also going to be super emotionally draining because you're the one making that decision. But most of the time, when we're the ones making the decision to postpone it, there is something else that's taking place of that. Sometimes it's being taken place by something that we're not excited about, right? We're postponing a goal because something negative is taking its place. If that is the case, I want you to find something small that you can still do for yourself. I have another Patreon community member whose husband was recently diagnosed with cancer. She has had to postpone a lot of goals to be able to focus on that. But what I always encourage her to do is still try to find, even if it is 5 minutes, for something that she's excited about, something that makes her happy. Because if all we do is focus on, well, I'm postponing the goals I want to do, and it's my decision, and it's all being filled with this negative thing, that is just going to spiral out of control. So I know that it can be hard, and you're like, well, I don't know if I can find 5 minutes. Okay, find 1 minute. Find 5 minutes over the course of the week, but really try to make sure that you're still incorporating things, even if they don't feel like goals, that make you happy. Now, if you are making the decision to postpone and you're filling it with something else that might be a combination of a positive and negative, right? Like the community member getting a new job, that would be a scenario where we're gonna focus on the good things coming out of that goal, not what we're giving up, right? So how is that new job going? How is it making you feel? How does that impact your day-to-day life in a positive way compared to your other job, right? Let's not sit here and think about all the things you had to put off in order to get this new job. Let's focus on all the good things about the new job and use that goal and that excitement to, again, the whole purpose is at the end of it, we are not letting the postponement kill all of our motivation because we're gonna pick something to focus on and let that become our action, become our momentum. So we talked about in our control, out of our control. The next two scenarios are also kind of opposites, and they could layer on with some of those other ones. But the first thing here is you're postponing for a set amount of time. That is example, right? I had to postpone our wedding from 2021 to 2022. Sometimes that kind of a scenario can be easier, right? Because you still have it to look forward to. You know that it's coming at some point. You're going to be able to pick back up on that goal when the time is right. But what that can sometimes do is, again, kill that motivation because we're killing the momentum on that goal. And so we immediately need to be like, okay, what are we filling that time with? The time I was originally going to allot for that goal, what goal is taking its place? And it could be another goal that you already had set that's getting bumped up in the priority, or it could be a totally new goal that you are filling in with that time. I can't sit here and tell you that I did this. Like, I can't sit here and say, I did a good job of this when I postponed my wedding. I filled it with X, Y, or Z, because I didn't. I let myself kind of sulk in that postponement, and I really didn't fill that time with anything. Really anything. And so I know that that's hard. I know that that is going to be hard for you to be like, well, I just am not gonna fill that time. And the hard part can be is that you're like, well, it's gonna come back. Right? That goal is coming back. I'm only temporarily postponing it, and I know when I'm gonna pick it back up. So I might as well just like leave that time blank. So what I want you to do in this scenario, and what I would like to go back and tell October of 2020 Laken, who postponed her wedding, so you're gonna go ahead and pick something small. And when I say small here, I don't mean like small versus big, important versus not important. I mean small in terms of timeline. What could you do? What is the goal that you have or something you want to achieve by the time you'd have to start working on that again? And what I would have wanted to do, and I'm gonna tell you another reason why this might be hard, is I would have wanted to say, okay, it's October 2020, I'm postponing my wedding, which means that I'd already done kind of the big stuff, so I don't really need to pick back up on planning again, probably until about July, August of the following year. So what is something that I can work on? What is a small time frame goal that I can focus on from now until then? The other hard part about something like this is when it wraps around a year, right? I think one of the reasons why this really frustrated me is that planning the wedding was a 2020 goal, and then all of a sudden it just wasn't because I was postponing it. But then I didn't necessarily want to make it a 2021 goal because it wasn't going to be a goal for the first half of the year. That is when refreshing your goals is really helpful. So I'm giving this example in like the way I didn't do it in the way that I would recommend myself do it, or I would recommend you doing it. I would say, okay, I'm postponing until this point. That gives me whatever the amount of time is, right? Maybe it's a month, you're only postponing a month, maybe it's 2 years, whatever you're postponing, and what can I work on in that time frame? That would get me excited to start taking action, get motivated, get that momentum, the cycle. Obviously, the opposite of that is postponing indefinitely. What if you are saying like, I know this is not the right time now to be working on this, so I am postponing this goal, or it's out of your control, but I'm postponing it indefinitely. I don't know when I'm gonna pick it back up again, which is kind of like the community member who's postponing starting a family. She's like, it's not something that she's starting right away. Partially, she has to rebuild her maternity leave. I'm still mad about that. But partially, she's like, I just need to get settled in this new job, and I don't know when I'm gonna feel ready again to start trying for a family. So it is, to her, postponed indefinitely. So then what I would ask myself is, okay, I don't have a time frame, so I don't know when I'm gonna pick it back up again. So what are the goals that I could work on that would support that goal when I am ready to pick it up again, right? So for her, it might be focusing on her relationship with her husband. It might be focusing on at-home routines and rhythms so that when they do expand their family, she's got some of those rhythms. And maybe it is taking care of herself physically so she feels her best when it is time to start expanding her family, right? What are some of the things she could do to support herself while she is in this postponement phase? Or let's say you want to buy a house, but right now the market is not the best, or you don't quite have the savings built up. It is an indefinite postponement because it's going to be kind of the perfect storm of your savings being built big enough, but also the market being in the right place, depending on where you live, to buy a house. So what are the things you can do to support yourself in that goal that you will eventually do? Now, by the way, if you postpone something indefinitely and then you ultimately decide it's postponed indefinitely, like you're never picking it back up, that's totally fine. Also a scenario. But if you are postponing it like you are gonna pick it back up, what are some things you could do, right? You could work on your finances in order to start saving more. You could work on cleaning routines so that when you have a bigger space, you're not just going from zero to the big space, you're going from small space to big space. I'm also preaching to myself a little bit there. But what are some goals or action steps you could create to help prepare you for when you do pick that goal back up? Now, the last scenario on why you might postpone a goal is that there are just not enough hours in a day. And likely, if you're anything like me or the members of our community, there's a lot of goals that you want to accomplish. And there are not enough hours in a day to achieve them all. And so we have to postpone them to future weeks, months, even years, because there just isn't enough time to work on them right now. And maybe that is what you're feeling right this second, right? It is the end of October. We have 2 months left in 2022. And you're like, I am not going to achieve all these goals that are on my 2022 list. Fair. You are not alone. We're all feeling that as we look at our annual goals list. So what are the things that you are just going to need to postpone to 23 because you just don't have time? That's fine. You're not alone, and you're not a failure. You didn't do anything wrong. There is nothing wrong with needing to postpone things to the following year because we just don't have time. What I want you to do is to just start that 2023 idea list. Just take the things that take them off your list. Literally take them off your 2022 list and put them on a 2023 ideas list. And by the way, when it comes around to working on your 2023 goal list, if that doesn't even make the list next year, that's fine. Maybe it's postponed to the next year or the next year, whenever you feel like it. But the punchline is, the moral of the story, what I want you to know is that you're not a failure if you need to postpone your goals for any reason. Whether that reason is within your control, out of your control, at a set timeline indefinitely, or just till next year because you're not going to get to it in the next 2 months, which happen to be some of the busiest 2 months of our years, typically with all of the holidays going on. It's okay to postpone your goals. You're not failing, you're prioritizing. I said that quote recently on a Patreon call that we all really liked. It was like, changing your goals is not failing, it's prioritizing. And postponing is just a form of changing. Now, if you do have a goal that you are really excited about for 2022, but it's likely getting pushed to 2023, and you feel like you need some extra support, you want that extra accountability into the new year in order for you to achieve that postponed goal, maybe one-on-one coaching would be a good fit for that goal. And I've said this in a few videos, I would highly recommend kicking off coaching in December and doing 1 or 2 calls in December to kind of set that groundwork. We'll take time off for the holidays, right? I'm not gonna make you have a call on Christmas Eve, but get those groundwork calls where we figure out your goal and break it down done in December. That way we kick off January really strong and starting to take action on that goal, whatever goal that is for you. So I always have the information about working together one-on-one linked in the description below if you're interested, or you can send me a DM on Instagram and we can chat about your particular goal and see if it would be a good fit. And I actually have one more thing I want to add on about this topic that I thought of while I was talking. That happens a lot. You don't owe an explanation to anybody, okay? Whatever you've decided or not decided about postponing goals, you don't owe an explanation to any single person about why or why not that goal is on your list or no longer on your list. Your goals are your goals, and you get to decide what is important and what gets to be on your list. So if you are postponing something, again, not failing, postponing, that is completely your decision, and you do not owe an explanation about that postponement to anybody at all. Okay, I just wanted to get that out there. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you're new here, please click that subscribe button. I upload new videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday focused on helping you achieve your goals. Thank you so much for watching.